Think you know what way it's going to go? Make your bet at Sports Interaction. Whatever your sport, Sports Interaction has you covered pregame, live betting on all major sports and prop bets. Want to bet? Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. 19 plus, please play responsibly.
If you don't know who Victor Wembanyama is, you will find out very, very soon. The 7'4" big man out of France is projected to be the undisputed #1 overall pick in the 2023 NBA draft. His highlights from Europe have gone viral. The 2 games he played in America were just a glimpse of his dominating potential. Even some current NBA legends have already spoken highly of the kid they affectionately call Wemby.
Yeah, he's like the 2K creative player. Every point guard that wants to be 7 foot, cheat code type vibes.
He's incredible, man. Like, I believe in 2045, everybody is gonna look like Victor.
That type of talent and skill, and it just puts a smile on your face if you play basketball, you know, because the evolution of the game is taking us this far.
We're labeling like this unicorn thing. Everybody's been a unicorn over the last few years, but he's more like an alien. I've never seen, no one has ever seen anyone as tall as he is, but as fluid and as graceful he is out on the floor.
He has some saying that he is the best prospect since LeBron James, and honestly, that is probably a fair assessment, for the simple reason that through the history of the NBA, we just have never seen a player like Wemby. He has the fluidity and shooting potential of a guard, yet he has the size and quickness to be an all-time defender. Essentially, he plays like Kevin Durant, but is probably over 5 inches taller than the Slim Reaper. While Wembanyama is unique in his own right, a never-before-seen prospect, there is also a trend happening in the NBA right now that potentially mirrors his archetype.
Yeah, I think there's a few reasons. I think we're talking about multiple different trends at the same time. One is players in the backcourt are getting bigger. You're seeing fewer small, slight guards in the league. I think just because it's getting so much harder for guys who can't switch defensively and can't hold their own defensively and be a positive contributor on that end to survive in the playoffs no matter what position. And then you look at the front court, and the trend had been, fewer 7-footers, fewer big guys, more toward small ball for a long time.
The rapid expansion of the three-pointer went faster in 5 years, from 2011 to 2016 than it did from 1982 until 2005, something like that, right?
Yeah.
It takes longer to adjust to certain types of the game. It takes longer for certain aspects of the game to phase out and then to be reimagined and phased back in, like what we're seeing with the post-up. The Raptors do this. Ben Taylor of Thinking Basketball just did a video on how Luka does it. You could listen to Caitlin Cooper and I talk about this a year ago. A new playmaking hub to invert defensive principles and stuff like that.
Because I think everyone is trying to find the next lineup advantage or just the next edge in general. And again, it used to be, okay, we have this hulking 7-footer that you can't keep from the basket. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of shifted to, okay, we have these wings that can kind of get to wherever they want to go. They can shoot or they can just get downhill whenever. You got to send extra attention. That opens up driving kick. And now we're starting to trend back bigger with the mix of, okay, these are the skills that work. This is the size that got us to the dance. Here are the skills that work. Now let's mix it together and find enough guys that can do that. And we can build the boat around that.
Right. I mean, I do think what we are seeing separate from all of that stuff is just an increase in skilled players that happen to be really tall. That's what every team has kind of always wanted that, but now those guys are just a little bit taller.
Going to the Raptors, they have a bunch of 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" dudes. It's okay, Pascal can dribble and get downhill. OG can shoot and defend all over the place. Scotty Barnes can play make. In a vacuum, those would be 3 different player types in a vacuum. But instead, now you're finding those skill sets in similar build players. Right. And that just helps you in terms of your versatility on both ends of the floor if you're able to do it that way.
It's fascinating, but there isn't a position in the NBA that has had to change as much as the big man. At its very adolescent stages, the game of basketball was one that was dominated by giants. Think of Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, George Mikan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The list is long. As the game has progressed, though, and as rules have changed, the game of basketball has shifted to place more importance on the perimeter. More recently, the three-point revolution, sparked by Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors, as well as James Harden and the Rockets, completely changed the way we look at spacing and defense. This evolutionary process forced big men to sort of get with the times, to find new ways to succeed without fitting in the mold of your quote-unquote traditional big man. Because of this, the archetype of the unicorn was born, and ever since we've been seeing a wider range of big men with varying skill sets entering the league.
Of course, a player comes along every once in a while that's completely unique, and you couldn't really say where they got their game from. But for the most part, players pick up their game from the best players in the world and the best players across history. Why does Kobe Bryant mimic a lot of what Michael Jordan does, right? Why did DeMar DeRozan mimic both MJ and Kobe? Right. Why are players going forward going to look at, Kevin Durant raves about DeMar's footwork, right? Other young players will have done so too. Darius Garland looking at Steph Curry. But young bigs have a growing library of talented big men to take from. Not only do you have a reference point in like Kevin Garnett, but you have a reference point in Dirk Nowitzki. Not only do you have guys like Kristaps Porzingis at the lower level, but you got guys like Jokic and Karl-Anthony Towns and Adebayo to a lesser degree, right? Yeah. There's a lot of diversity as it grows. And that means that players can see at a grassroots level, and they can idolize any number of players and try to mimic those things. Mm-hmm. Mimicking players as we grow informs how we problem solve on the floor. It also informs how we look to win on the floor. And that means that you're creating, as basketball grows, a wider array of outcomes to try and achieve, which means you're going to create a wider array of outcomes that people try.
Today's young, tall kid has not been watching like back to the basket centers growing up. They have been watching LeBron and Giannis and Kevin Durant. Like they want to be those guys. You're going to see guys who have grown up playing like guards or wings, but happen to be around 7 feet tall. And that is not a completely novel concept. I think Kevin Garnett was like that. Kevin Durant is like that now. But it is becoming more common. It is becoming a little more extreme. And it is not so much that anyone who does that is a complete outlier anymore. And it's not even so much that anyone who does that is a superstar.
Well, I think the globalization of the game is big. 20 years ago, they weren't, kids from France or Africa or different parts of the world couldn't just click a button and watch NBA games. So I think that has helped. I think people just don't want to be put into like these boxes for a position anymore. I'd say like your Dirk, he made bigs want to shoot. And then you look at Durant, he made bigs want to play like guards. And then I just think it's a combination of all of it combined with a guy like Victor and even Bobo. So
this replication, emulation concept that is so unique to basketball is what breeds innovation, and it's what helped the big man evolve throughout the years. Now, the league is filled with unicorn-type players. Pokusevski, Bol Bol, Kristaps Porzingis, Chet Holmgren, Scotty Barnes, Evan Mobley, and next year, maybe the biggest unicorn of them all, Wembanyama.
Well, from what everybody tells me, every step that has been taken in his development has been thinking long term. Right. Like, for instance, this summer, I'm sure that Victor could have gone to any team in the world, not in the NBA. If he's going to be the number one pick, he's going to be asked to carry a certain load on offense and on defense. His camp has done a great job of putting him in teams and in situations that help his long-term development.
What has made the unicorn less of a unicorn in the NBA? Well, it starts at the developmental level.
I guess everybody else is kind of prematurely labeled unicorns because this is like the real one. But maybe LeBron had the best name for him when he called him an alien.
Look, these trends that have happened over the last 10 to 15 years, positionless basketball, the emphasis on the three-point shot, mixed with the demand we're seeing now for versatility, length, etc., right? That has helped create a player at a grassroots level like Wembanyama. Do you agree with that statement?
I think so, because I think people see where the league is trending. Because of where the league's going, there's been more of a willingness to let kids explore, and I think that opens the door for someone like Wemby, who he's 7'4", 7'4", 7'5", 7'3", like somewhere in there.
Yeah,
I would imagine when he was a 6'2" teenager or young kid, they let him keep dribbling. They let him keep shooting. Whereas 20 years ago, if he pops up, we're trying to make him darker.
Right.
When you incentivize skill progression, a certain one, you're going to get returns on that. Victor Wembanyama is a perfect example of that. If he had grown up however many years ago, been born in 1988 or something, his game would look fundamentally different than it does today.
You know, what we see in the NBA, when we see a 7-foot wing shooting the hell out of the ball like Kevin Durant, there's a coach in France that says, hey, maybe I should try that with the kids that I'm, training. I think even I don't want to diss him, but even the Dragon Benders of the world paved the way for Wemby with their, with their failures and their success. Everyone paved the way and made the idea of a player 7 feet, 7'2" that puts the ball on the floor, that a 6'8" guy that makes passes and plays like a point guard. A weird combination of size on a 195-pound body like Boguszewski. Right. All those singular players, paved the way for Wemby. And I think Wembanyama might be like you say, the culmination of the international unicorn, maybe of all unicorns.
Perhaps what may have sparked this change is the game opening up internationally. Look at the top of the NBA right now. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, Luka Doncic. The game has quickly become an international one. A characteristic that all four of those players share is that they don't play any traditional position. They wear multiple hats for their teams and can do a large variety of things on the court. Is that something that is more emphasized in basketball internationally?
One of the things I've heard about Europe is that, one, they don't have the same level of talent that we have, and the numbers, just the sheer numbers. So a guy told me once, he says in the United States, if you're putting together a team or you have tryouts, you have tons of kids, we actually have to cut kids. And he said in other countries, you just have to work with what you have. So if only, if there's a team and there's only 7 guys, those are the guys that are interested, and you have to develop them.
Yeah. I think I was talking to a coach in the Czech Republic a while ago, the coach of GBA Academy, and he explained to me how their development, and they're one of the better academies in Europe, was at a certain age, players learn to play. At a certain age, they learn to compete. At a certain age, they have to learn how to win. It's important not to put winning basketball before learning. And I think also it's underrated how much you can learn to be a pro. Mm-hmm. If you play against pros every day, if you train with pros every day, if you live around professional basketball players every day. I think that's one of the things that made Doncic the player he is right now. Of course, he was incredible since a very young age, and that's those skills and those tools, gave him the possibility to play against pros. But he used that opportunity to learn how to be a pro.
So, what could the potential repercussions be of a league dominated by players who are taller, but have the same skill set as smaller guards and wings?
I mean, just think of who the top 20 players are in the league. Like, how many of them are under 6'5"?
Yeah.
Like, I don't have a list in front of me, but I would imagine it's 5 or fewer. If you're going to be under 6'3", there has to be a special, or there has to be a very high quality at the very least. Right. Like, Devontae Graham has to have the pull-up going. Last year in Charlotte, he had it going. He didn't have it last season. He was pretty much unplayable for New Orleans, right. Just as a brief example. Jose Alvarado works because he is insane at the point of attack, and he can also get to the rim whenever he wants to.
Man, like, small guards are going to be obsolete in a sense, and so is like your traditional back to the basket post player. It's like you either have to be Jokic or Embiid. And if you're not one of those guys, then as a traditional back to the basket center, I mean, there's not many teams that are going to just give you the ball in the post and say, hey, get
Go
out the
for it.
way, go
Yeah.
for it.
Yep.
But when you're like a small point guard, they look at you as just a one person defender. And then in today's NBA where they're just seeking out mismatches. And so I think that is probably one of the reasons why small guards are just going to be, it's going to be harder for them.
Big guards allow for easier switching, and they muck up more passing lanes. We're seeing this with the Raptors a lot. There's a lot of different ways that Fred VanVleet affects defense, and he's one of the best defensive guards in the NBA still. When you have length, you shrink the floor for the offense. And there are some takeaways from that is that point of attack defense is worse than ever.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It's bad. That's because the guards are bigger, like honestly. But, there's so much screening in the game today, and there's so much off-ball movement that the bigger guards kind of fit better into that overall team defense concept, I would say.
In James Herbert's piece on this tall ball evolution, Terrence Ross said that the future of the league is all skilled big men. But will it actually be that? And could Wembanyama potentially accelerate that process?
It's just like the percentage of people at any given time that are 7'4" is so low that it's like, I don't know that it'll be quite the same, but in terms of like big dudes that can do a lot of stuff, absolutely. Like, and it's not just him, like it's Wemby, it's Chet, it's like, it's Paolo Banchero.
Scotty,
like,
Mobley, whatever.
Shit, yeah, right? like go back, like Jaren Jackson Jr., like all of these guys who are big, but they can move, and maybe they can shoot, maybe they can pass, whatever it is, they have some skills with the ball in their hands. Like, that is going to like be considered gold.
If he comes in and dominates, I think absolutely. I would struggle to say that he like fast forwards it, because even if he's going to be good, whoever's drafting him is a bad team. So it's going to be a ways before he impacts in the ways where, okay, we have to bend towards him. Because he is such a unique talent, if you're projecting him to be best player on the title team, good, which I think, honestly, if he's healthy, I think he gets there. And then if they do win with Victor, whoever that team is, I think other teams going to eye them like, okay, how do we counter that?
I don't think we are headed towards that. Not for a long time, at least. Big men, like Pascal Siakam, averaging, 25 and 8 assists. He does it in a way that a wing does it. But he does it in like this mismatchy, beating doubles type of way. Joel Embiid averages a bunch, and he does it in a different way. The point is that there's a lot of different ways to succeed. There are very clear advantages to having big guys, of course. But I cover the Raptors. I see the drawbacks, the drawbacks of the hubris, of the dogma of just thinking, because we're long, we can do it. And there are certain things that they can do because they're long. But there are certain things that they objectively miss out on because they don't play certain types of players. They don't lean into certain archetypes. And to expect the development to, I guess, bridge that gap already, or get even close to it, I'm not sure, because there are a lot of things that bigs could have been trying to do for a long time. And they're just now, it's like, oh, this guy's a really good shooter and he can score in isolation. But that doesn't sound like a guard to me. That doesn't sound like everything that a player has to do on the court to me.
Right.
I guess there'll be a little bit more pressure to find that guy, because it's going to be easier to build a title winner around that guy. Because again, there are going to be smaller guys that come out. Like Atlanta got Trae Young. He got him to at least the conference finals. You can quibble about how that run came about if you want to. But like, again, the barrier of entry is going to be higher. That doesn't mean the barrier of entry doesn't exist. Like, you can build a winner around Trae. The Warriors have built a winner around Steph Curry. But again, it's just going to be a lot harder.
I think his biggest impact could be globally, in a sense, because the game is international. He is French, but everything I've heard about him is that he's like a certified genius. Like, I've heard that he is one of the most intelligent people you ever meet. And I've heard this from like multiple people. He kind of has a little personality. He has like he's a nice looking kid. So I think he could possibly change the game globally if he ends up being like the player that everyone expects him to be. And then I think he could have an impact, all over from a marketing aspect, because a lot of the international players just don't really have interest in marketing.
As for like the bigger picture, how he's going to change the game and what comes next, honestly, it's hard to call it. Like, I think what he'll primarily do is kind of continue the trend that we're already seeing. Is he will inspire people to stretch the limits of their game no matter what size they are. He will inspire people who are, younger and growing up and saying like, I want to be like that guy.
We're seeing Wembanyama now. I hope that there's yet another step. I don't know what that will be.
Yeah.
I don't know what that will be, but thinking about somebody that can improve on what Wembanyama is as a prospect now is scary.
The NBA, at its core, has always been a copycat league. Players take from other players, teams take from other teams, and in many ways, Wembanyama could potentially inspire the next generation to take from him, if he lives up to his unbelievable potential. But there's no question about this. Size is making a comeback in the NBA. It might just look a little different than it did even 15 years ago. Instead of Andrew Bynum, we're seeing more Paolo Bancheros. Instead of Rudy Gobert, we're seeing more Chet Holmgrens and Pokusevskis. When the NBA first introduced the three-point shot, they did so in order to even the playing field and help give an advantage to the smaller guards. 50 years later, big men have caught up on the perimeter, and the byproduct of that evolution is a player like Wembanyama. So who knows what we'll see after Wemby has left his imprint on the league.